Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel with an amazing panel discussion today. Who's who in the analyst community on CPaaS? Uh, what's expected, the next wave of innovation in the communication services space? Gentlemen, how are you?
Great.
Thank you.
Well, really excited to have you on board for this discussion today. Why don't we quickly do a round of introductions across the board? Courtney, good to see you. Maybe introduce yourself. And IDC requires no introduction, but would love to hear about you.
Great. Thanks, Ivan. My name is Courtney Monroe. I'm a VP for research in the telecommunications group at IDC, and I've been covering the CPaaS segment for the last 7 years or so.
Wow, that's really almost the birth of the modern CPaaS
That's
movement
right.
industry. That's fantastic. Michael, of course, Frost needs no introduction either.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Mike Brandenburg, Senior Industry Analyst, part of the Connected Work team here at Frost & Sullivan. We cover the kind of entire enterprise communication stack. My focus areas for almost as long as Courtney have included CPaaS as well as a lot of the carrier services and carrier infrastructure.
Fantastic. Good to see you, Michael. And Raul, I just realized we're neighbors outside of Boston. Didn't know that, so we'll have to get together. But introduce S&P Global Market Intelligence and your role there.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Raul. I'm a senior analyst with S&P Global Market Intelligence. I'm part of the workforce productivity and collaboration team. So within that, I cover business communications, and within that, CPaaS has been a major part of my coverage for, I guess, similar to my colleagues, about 8 years now. So it's been a while, starting out mainly on the mobile application development side, and as you know, increasingly taking just more and more relevance.
Fantastic. Well, really excited to have this discussion because it's really timely. There's so much happening in our space, and you guys are the experts. Maybe Courtney, we'll begin with you. Maybe a state of the industry. What's your impression? Where are we now? I think it's the most dynamic and interesting time. New entrants, new competitors, new business models. What say you about the current state of play?
Well, I think it's an exciting time for the CPaaS segment. The industry is facing tremendous disruption, economic, political, cultural. And I believe this is the time when, companies can really dig in and try new things and to redefine and differentiate themselves. So I think the CPaaS segment is in a good spot to leverage, disruption in the IT segment. The industry is also changing, right? So I think we're moving from the provision of basic APIs to solutions, and also the consolidation of various segments with CPaaS. We've seen a lot of this with CCaaS, contact center, and we're beginning to see that consolidation with unified communication. So there's a lot happening. The industry is evolving. IT companies are evolving. So I think the best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. Yeah, it's an amazing time, which is why I'm really excited about the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, an organization that's really going to focus exclusively on this space. Michael, any color commentary on what Courtney says? What would you add to the state of play?
Yeah, and I think Raul and Courtney will say the same thing, but we've been following it long enough, and we've been trying to watch that adoption curve, and it's really been tied to companies' digital transformations and adding digital channels and transforming their businesses. And I hate to put it this way, but the pandemic was a coming out party for digital transformation. Every organization you could think of had to do digital in some form, and the CPaaS market was, and players in it were ready to embrace that and onboard those companies. So it's really, I agree. It's a really interesting time for the market because there's a lot of awareness of what APIs can do, why an enterprise would need it, need them and how they would best use them. So it's cool to watch the evolving use cases go from just, quick test messages into something broader and more in depth.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Ro, what say you as far as what's next for CPaaS? I mean, we've seen the two-factor authentications and the messaging, very simple use cases, but there's more exciting stuff on the horizon, is there not?
Yes, for sure. I think that in addition to what my colleagues were pointing out, I could say that we're seeing a very interesting evolution where this digital transformation that Michael was talking about is expanding very rapidly. A few years ago, we were talking about CPaaS 2.0 and going from the digital natives to the enterprise segment. I think now there is an expansion toward SMEs. Some vendors are trying to target this segment, not all of the CPaaS vendors. Personally, I think it's an interesting opportunity for other players to insert themselves in the value chain. And related to what you were saying, I could expect these SMBs to focus more on those use cases that we are more familiar with, more simple. But then we also see an evolution in the enterprise and digital natives towards increasingly complex use cases that will really involve a digitization of operations. So there's different things going on at the same time.
Yeah, lots of moving parts. Courtney, what's next for CPaaS on your radar? Are there any particular trends that you're really tracking closely?
Well, I think that we mentioned there is more to CPaaS than say messaging and multi-factor authentication. I think we're going to see a tremendous growth in video. I think we're just beginning because I think CPaaS companies had to figure out what's the differentiation from SaaS video like Zoom, etc. And I think the answer is basically focusing on vertical solutions, whether it's education, financial segment, healthcare. So I think you're going to see a significant uptake in video services. I think that's one area that I'm looking at. The other area is identity beyond multi-factor authentication. How can we have something that's sort of more seamless? And I believe you're going to see tremendous growth there and innovation as well. So I think those are a couple. The other thing I would say is, Michael mentioned, digital channels and omni-channel marketing. I think, we're just at the beginning of that. And I think that is another area of growth where you're going to see CPaaS beginning to offer more choice, but also, those areas grow significantly in terms of revenues for CPaaS providers.
Yeah, well, revenue is that would be nice to talk about beyond the tech. What do you think, Michael? Video, identity, exciting topics for CPaaS players.
Right. I mean, it's really kind of simple to just call this messaging and two-factor authentication, but there is a lot of depth in happening in verification. Simple thing, what feels simple but are really powerful are detecting SIM swaps and verifying a user on a device without having to make them put a PIN or send the text and actually getting more in depth. And as all these companies that kind of talked about before are getting into digital, those tools need to be available in a clean fashion. And the one thing I would add to the other technology piece that's kind of changing the game in my mind is low code no code tools.
Say that 10 times quickly. Yes.
Yes. Where you could just kind of build a workflow and a line of business person can do that rather than just hiring a developer or having someone on staff and going back and forth in the development cycle. if you could drag and drop some of those things, that becomes very powerful, and that's, leverages the base platforms of CPaaS and those core functions without having that coding knowledge.
Yeah, really, really interesting opportunities, brand new concepts in our space. That's for sure. Let's talk about the T word, Twilio. I'm a 30-year telco guy, and I was selling to companies that we called PTTs back in the day. So competition and innovation really wasn't much on the radar. So what say you, Courtney? I mean, can telcos compete with the likes of Twilio? Should they even try? Is it all about partnerships and through the middle? What do you think?
Well, at this point, I don't think they can compete with Twilio. I think Twilio is way ahead in terms of, their expertise, their ability to offer seamless service. The telcos should try, but I don't think they want to invest, hundreds of millions of dollars. I think they should work with the CPaaS providers, leverage the CPaaS providers to offer, sort of a best in breed interface to customers. And they can tweak it because they have the network. But I would say at this point, the CPaaS providers are software companies, telcos are networking companies. Even though they're moving into the software space, they're not there yet. So I would say rather than risking, significant investment at this time, where interest rates and capital is very expensive, I would say work with CPaaS companies to sort of enable some key CPaaS facilities, and then as you grow and mature, maybe you want to do it on your own.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And Raul, so what do you view this as being? Is it partnership? Is it co-opetition? Is it acquisition maybe of companies in this space? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very nuanced topic. I certainly agree with Courtney in terms of competition. I certainly don't think that telcos should or are even in a position to compete with the likes of Twilio.
Mm-hmm.
I could say, however, that there are many opportunities that CPaaS vendors like Twilio may not necessarily be addressing. And we talked earlier in the call about the SMB market. I think there are many opportunities there where telcos are really well positioned and well suited to go after. Certainly, I agree also with the cooperation more than competition. They're already cooperating because telcos actually they are carrying all the information, all the communication. So they have been there since the beginning. But certainly enabling them, working with the CPaaS enablement vendors, I think that really presents an interesting opportunity for them.
Yeah, interesting indeed. I know, Michael, you were recently at the Twilio analyst or customer event. What's some of the takeaways you learned there about potential business models and with telcos?
The one thing I'd say my biggest takeaway, and this is, I have to do personally and probably convey to the market. It's really easy to think of Twilio as a CPaaS provider.
Mm-hmm.
And because, I think Jeff over there even said, the analysts here helped define that space. And they sit really well in it. I had a really kind of a change of thinking and how it kind of applies to the operators, is they are a programmable carrier platform. They can provide voice, video, messaging, and they could either add a top of solution. They have a solution stack on top of it, but at their core, they're providing a lot of communications and data. And I think the end state of most communication services, whether you're talking about a Twilio CPaaS specifically, or a traditional SIP trunking carrier or even the UCaaS providers is a programmable element at their core capabilities. Programmable, APIs and those are not going away anytime soon. In fact, consumption is just going to, I think, is going to become a default requirement of services. You may, serve your users with a UCaaS, soft client, but you will want to consume, through a marketing app or message notifications, want to consume APIs from that same platform. So I look at them as both, partner opportunity, competition, and really a model for what most of the what the end state of these we've gone from solutions and products in the telco space into merging into platforms, and I see them as like a platform model that even carriers could try to emulate.
Yeah, great points. Let's switch gears from the carrier to the enterprise. That's where a lot of the excitement is, frankly, and perhaps the biggest opportunity is. So unpack this for us, Courtney. Like, what's the opportunity in the enterprise, and is it realistic to get lots of enterprises developing apps?
Absolutely. I think that it's all about engaging with your end users, partners, suppliers on a digital platform. And I think most medium, large enterprises are well on the way to implementing digital infrastructure, right? So it's not really about digital transformation. It's at IDC we say it's more about digital resiliency. So how do you manage now that you've found digital? How do you manage it? How do you leverage it? How do you leverage the ROI? And what that means is you have to build and you have to basically learn and figure out what your end users are doing, which channels they're on, and how to communicate with them in their channel, how to personalize that engagement. So I think absolutely, and I think if you look across the spectrum, right, look at sort of Fortune 1000, they're all building, right, Walmart, Home Depot, large hospitals, they're all building personalized, differentiated app, and I believe that trend will continue. And it's the issue is it needs to get easier so that a wide range of personas across the organization, not just the programmers and the coders can do it, but as Michael said, leverage low code and no code to build solutions. So I think this will continue as a trend over time.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. Raul, do you have any anecdotes or stories of enterprise use cases that come to mind, or what have you seen in your research that's really relevant for the enterprise?
I can tell you about use cases, not necessarily talking about specific vendors, since that information might not.
Oh, come on, give us all your secrets. Tell us everything.
Well, their clients probably could be more sensitive. But I have seen some very interesting use cases in healthcare where vendors, and Courtney pointed this out, the relevance that video has, and then expanding the capabilities of programmable video to include other forms of communication to enable the real-time engagement with the healthcare provider. And that is including, for example, real-time notifications, access to the electronic health records, and even a touch of IoT monitoring the patient with sensors on the bed. All of that really brings together a number of capabilities that elevate the work that the frontline healthcare providers are doing. I like those use cases very much. There's others that I have seen in retail where you also see the use of video, object recognition, and character recognition to also elevate the work that the frontline workers, which for many years have been traveling to and from, to enable the retailers with new products, analyze product movement, and so on. We now see companies really advancing in terms of the work that these employees are doing with those capabilities. And you see really interesting breakthroughs, for example, in terms of the speed and also the geographic coverage that they're able to do. Those are just some of the ones that come to mind right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Tech for good, things that can actually help literally save lives. Michael, what's your take on the enterprise and maybe more even some of the SMEs? Is there a play for smaller businesses beyond the big global 5,000?
Absolutely, and my example probably won't be nearly as life changing, but there is actually a quality of life. If you look at how many digital steps are required to support curbside pickup. And that's one of those use cases where, that's your grocery store, that's Best Buy, that's, every retail outlet had to, create that air gap between their customers and themselves, and they turned to digital to do that. That started as a reactionary response to, the times. But that's become a permanent feature now. And customers, there are certain grocery customers that, will online order and drive up and have their groceries loaded in the trunk of their car. Those aren't going away. And if you think about what it takes to communicate both with the customer, with the employee who's picking that order, the online stores to make sure the inventories are maintained, that's a big digital lift. And small, kind of as you move down market, if you're competing against, a big box store or, a mega grocery store, you need those same tools and same, you need those same features of your store and need help getting there. So it will, that's going to become a table stakes for that industry. You can look back to Uber on a lot of the technical things, like they needed to communicate between passenger and driver. They needed caller ID masking, so you didn't get their personal cell, but you had to make those connections. Those use cases are filtering down, or those requirements are filtering down, into the broader enterprise market, because your employees working at home on their cell, you don't want to share that number. The two-factor authentications that we talked to. Once you have an app, you have to actually verify that the user is actually who they say they are. So it's the things that were once a unicorn or unicorn startup or financial services focus is now kind of going more horizontal. And likewise with retail, features are becoming highly digital, and everything's a digital storefront these days.
Interesting. Let's shift gear to looking at the long run. And Courtney, I'll direct this to you. Is this going to be a win-win kind of partnering? Is it love-hate or co-opetition? What's the model for the CPaaS telco relationship over time? Become one and the same, essentially.
Yeah, I think that I envision competition. So I think that CPaaS providers need telcos for the networking capabilities. They need direct connectivity so that they can provide, reliable and sort of one hop type of delivery of their messaging. So I think that is critical. And as you know, telcos are notoriously tough to do direct connection with, So I think that over time, we've seen, a few vendors really sort of begin to leverage that in the CPaaS segment, but I think that's going to become pretty common going forward. And from a telco perspective, I think you're going to see them all begin to offer some basic services. Messaging is sort of the low hanging fruit, but there's other stuff they can do. They can do like simple IVR, for call centers, especially small businesses. And they could leverage like, AI engines like Google to help with routing. So I think there's things they can do that, to slowly begin, to tackle this market without spending a whole lot of money. They're already doing a lot of stuff. They're doing apps like, translation services, transcription services, for conference calls, leveraging out of CPaaS APIs. So I expect to see them begin to do that. I mean, AT&T already has its marketplace. And I would say over the next year, expect to see more carriers add an API front end, a CPaaS front end. But I think as long as they're not too overly ambitious, they could leverage, the growth in this market. And I think most of them will do that in partnership with CPaaS providers, and then over time maybe wean themselves off of that. But I think we're years away from that.
Interesting. And what say you, Raul? What should we look forward to years away in terms of the relationship with telco and traditional players?
Yeah, so I agree with Courtney in terms of how the market is evolving. I do expect that more telcos will be jumping on the opportunity. Like I said, I think there is a significant opportunity there that CPaaS vendors will likely not necessarily be jumping on, but telcos are well positioned to tackle that. It is a very big market, and there are some telcos that I think have been moving faster. Courtney mentioned AT&T. I have been following what they have done for at least 4 years, and I do expect them to come up with a few interesting breakthroughs within this year and the next. And there are other interesting telcos also in a similar position in the Middle East, in Asia. I could actually say that some of them might actually be even more advanced than what we have here in the US.
Well, that would be something to see. Michael, what's your perspective longer term on the telco CPaaS relationship?
Just actually, I wanted to pull a stat that we when we surveyed IT decision makers. So your original, like, do the CPaaS providers need telcos? And beyond the network and the wholesale capabilities on the back end, our decision makers that we surveyed want to engage their service providers and their carriers. Actually, they rate higher in giving service providers an opportunity, even over a lot of the over-the-top, transactional CPaaS providers. They're a first choice when a customer wants to try this. So it's really the market is going to pull them in, or at least give them the opportunity to get into this space. I do agree. I think there's going to be a lot more activity kind of on the CPaaS enablement side, and we know there's a number of providers in there that can layer on and give carriers CPaaS capabilities. But I think there's also a mindset change that has to happen within the carriers, because I mean, we talk about CPaaS being everywhere and being involved. The core capabilities exist within most carriers, but when a customer previously has come to them and said, "Hey, we want to do SMS, or we want to do some of these things," they hand that their salesman will hand them to the professional services group, and they'll do a big professional services engagement and use some private APIs and a lot of consulting hours to give them that solution. CPaaS just opened this up to public APIs and in a new consumption model. So carriers have to change their mindset on how they approach those customer requests for programmable communications capabilities.
Yeah, really interesting insights there. Well, look, that's been quite a tour de force in just a half an hour on state of the industry, from the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. There's been some interesting activity on the November 22nd, where we talked to, some of the original OGs of the CPaaS world, and the CX Winter Series. So with the SmartCom Summit and the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance has some interesting content planned over the winter. Speaking of which, before we go, just I can't believe it's almost Thanksgiving, almost Christmas. Time flies. What are you guys most excited about the rest of the year? Courtney, what are you personally excited about? Taking some time off, or are you going to do some personal travel? Stay at home? Is that what you're excited about? What's going on, man?
All of the above.
Okay.
Stay at home, get some sleep. Then
sleep is good. Yes, you guys have been traveling extraordinarily.
Oh,
yeah.
But also hit the road and go visit family. Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Michael, I'm probably there's some ice fishing or tailgating at 0 degrees in your future. What are you looking forward to over the next months?
I would love to say that I'm looking forward to watching football over the next several months, but anyone who knows me knows that that's a bad topic
Michael.
No, I'm racing to the holidays, and I'm going to probably enjoy the staycation while we shut down over. And
nice.
And super embrace that and catch up on my binge shows. So
I love it. And Raul, Massachusetts, we've had some nice weather over the last couple weeks, but the tide is turning. What are you excited about for the upcoming holidays?
I'm looking forward to getting out of here, actually, and visit my family that I haven't seen in like 3 years. So,
oh wow,
looking forward to a long break.
That'll be an epic trip. Well, thanks, sir, gentlemen. It was really insightful. I know you're busy, so your time is pretty valuable, and we appreciate your joining us. So until then, look forward to
pleasure.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thank you,
guys.